Good morning, viewers. Welcome to KP's Lit Charts channel, your own YouTube channel. This is Professor Kamla Prasad Mahapatra. I welcome you to a new video on literary theory and literary criticism. Sometimes it creates a confusion. What is literary theory and what is literary criticism? The literateurs, the students, lovers of literature, writers, professors, and even the critics, they find themselves in confusion to make a distinction between literary theory and literary criticism. Ladies and gentlemen, we must remember that literary theory is the foundation on which the superstructure of literary criticism is built. Literary theory is a set of principles, a set of guidelines on the application of which the literary criticism is made. A literary critic always banks upon the theoretical principles, the literary theoretical principles, and appreciates, analyzes, evaluates a particular literary text. So the history of literary theory dates back to many years in the past, to Greece and Rome, to the critics of Greece and Rome. Critics, eminent critics like Plato and Aristotle, they devised this theory or this set of guidelines, set of principles, set of evaluation procedures. Aristotle talked about the theory of mimesis. Plato also talked about the theory of mimesis. By mimesis we understand imitation. So Plato said art is an imitation, but Plato had a different view to put forward. Plato had written a magnum opus known as the Republic. In the Republic, he conceived an ideal republic, an ideal society, an ideal world where human beings will live without any problem, without any hassles, without any worries, without any anxieties, without any trials, without any tribulations. They will have peace, plenitude, happiness, and eternal bliss. For that reason, he included a cross section of people, professionals like doctors, engineers, philosophers, psychologists, and so many other people, architects. But what he did, he banished the writers, the poets. He made the plea that the poets have no place in the republic, ideal republic, because the poets are liars. Poets live in the domain of imagination, in the domain of fantasy, and poetry has a very corrupting influence on the society. Poetry talks about falsehood. Poetry talks about make-believe world. Poetry talks about fantasy, imagination, which has no practical relevance to real life. As we know, Aristotle is a devoted student of Plato. Plato is a devoted student of Socrates. So Socrates, Plato and Aristotle, this trio, they are very big names, very legendary people in the history of literature. So Aristotle said that art is an imitation and artists are not liars. Art doesn't imitate unreal things. Art doesn't imitate fantasy, the things belonging to the world of fantasy. Rather, art is the manifestation of reality. Art deals with reality. Just imagine, this literature would not have been possible had there been no imagination and had there been no reality. What does a writer do? A writer collects different elements of experience from different sources and tries to give it a color of imagination so as to make the common things appear uncommon and ordinary things appear extraordinary. In this connection, I would like to remind you of Wordsworth's views in his preface to Lyrical Ballads. In his preface to Lyrical Ballads, Wordsworth said about the poetic diction. What should be the diction of poetry, the language of poetry? How it should be communicable? How it should be understood by the common people? A poet is not supposed to put himself in the Eiffel Tower. He should descend down to the world of reality and deal with the common people. Share the joys and jubilance, sorrows and sufferings, worries and anxieties, enigmas and perplexities, fret and fever, trials and tribulations, excitements and festivities of the common people as well as the sophisticated people. A poet's objective is to make him understood. A writer's objective is to drive home the point that he wants to make out. And he also invites opinion from the critics. He always welcomes critical assessment, critical evaluation, critical appreciation. A good poet is he who doesn't mind if his work is criticized. He always welcomes constructive criticism, so that criticism becomes a kind of beacon on his path of creativity, and he can gather more and more maturity to go ahead with his creative expressions. So Aristotle said, art is an imitation, art is the manifestation of reality. Aristotle differed with Plato that art deals with imagination only. Art is twice removed from reality. Plato said, art is twice removed from reality. Aristotle refused to accept this view of his revered teacher Plato. He said, I beg to differ, and I must say that art is not twice removed from reality. It is the expression of reality, representation of reality, manifestation of reality, portrayal of reality. What does art do? Art means literature. Art means painting. Art means, any kind of design. So in literature, a poet or writer tries to imitate the realistic experiences of the people. In this connection, Wordsworth said, poetry is the spontaneous overflow of powerful feelings recollected in tranquility. He gave the bucket image to explain his definition. He said, there is a bucket. You pour water into it. Go on pouring till the water is full to the brim. And when it is full to the brim, still go on pouring. What will happen? The water will spill out. The water will overflow. Then he explained, human mind is like a bucket. It has a limited space. The poet goes on encountering different kinds of experiences. He embarks on his creative journey unknowingly, inadvertently, without his knowledge. He comes across a farmer is tilling the land under the hot sun, goes ahead, sees a dead body is being carried. People are chanting Ram Naam Satya Hai. Still goes ahead. On another day maybe, he comes across a young boy and a young girl talking under the gulmohar tree, making romance. Still he goes ahead, finds one sadhu making meditation under a banyan tree. Still goes ahead and finds a patient is being carried to the hospital. These are all discordant experiences, diverse experiences he gathers in the course of time. And the experiences or the sights which appeal to him, they are imprinted in his mind, stored in his mind automatically. And after gathering such type of experience over the days, over the months, he finds that the space of the brain is filled up. When the space of the brain is filled up, now he cannot acquire more. If he acquires, the feelings will overflow. How does it overflow? Spontaneously. He doesn't have to try. He doesn't have to make effort. So poetry is the spontaneous overflow of powerful feelings recollected in tranquility. So that person sits down in a calm, quiet, serene, tranquil, placid atmosphere, solitary atmosphere, and tries to reminisce, remember, recollect what he has seen or what he has come across, what he has gathered so far. Whatever he has gathered, whatever he has gathered, he tries to serialize them, organize them, harmonize them, synthesize them, put them together and jots it down on a piece of paper, and whatever he has jotted down, that becomes poetry. Spontaneous overflow of powerful feelings recollected in tranquility. In a very tranquil, calm, quiet atmosphere, placid atmosphere, solitary atmosphere, he started recollecting, reminiscing, remembering his experience and giving it a shape of a poem. So, Aristotle said that art is the representation of reality. Art is the manifestation of reality. It cannot be said to be twice removed from reality. Of course, literature is a blending between fantasy and realism, emotion and intellect, imagination and reason. You can't deny that. And at the same time, for writing literature, three things are essential. Another French critic, Hippolyte Taine, he opined that three things are essential for writing literature. One is race, second is milieu, third is moment. Race is the man or the poet or the writer, the race of writers. Then milieu is the background, the atmosphere, the environment in which the poet is writing or living. In whatever environment he is living, that influence of the environment will always be there in the writing. He can't segregate himself. He can't isolate himself. He can't alienate himself from the milieu he is living, from the surrounding he is living, from the environment he is living, from the atmosphere he is living, from the neighborhood he is living. So the neighborhood, the environment, the milieu, the atmosphere are part and parcel of his creative vision, creative talent. Then comes moment. Every time a writer is not supposed to write. It may take months together, days together, maybe years together. A single idea will never come to the mind of a writer. But sometimes Goddess Muse, or in our Indian philosophy, Goddess Saraswati, Ma Sarla, used to impregnate the writer with ideas. When wonderful ideas, creative ideas strike the writer, he feels like writing. And that is the moment, the epiphanic moment, the important moment, the creative moment, the fecund moment, the exceedingly inspiring moment. When the writer feels enthused, the writer feels motivated, the writer feels encouraged to write something. That is why moment is important. Hippolyte Taine said, three things are essential for literature. One is rest, second is milieu, third is moment. This is important from the point of view of NET, MA, BA, UPSC exam, banking exam, etc. This is useful for the students as well. This is useful for the researchers as well. This is useful for the professors and critics as well. So, Aristotle said the theory of mimesis talks about imitation and the writer imitates, of course, but what does he imitate? He imitates something substantial, he imitates something worthwhile, he imitates something meaningful, useful, and he puts his experiences, portrays his experiences in the shape of creative literature. Then, after some time, this theory of mimesis became very popular and people began to appreciate it, and they believed the theory of mimesis is actually useful and it has some relevance to creative literature. And literature can never be described as based on imagination. There is imagination as well as realism. And the writer is indirectly giving some hints to bring about a reformation in the society. What happened during French Revolution in 1789? The writings of Voltaire, Montesquieu and Rousseau could enthuse people, motivate people to join the revolution. So you can't say literature is meaningless. Literature is based on imagination, fantasy only. So that is how Aristotle contested. Then after some time, another theory emerged, historical and biographical criticism. This literary theory, named as historical and biographical criticism, embarked on the biography and history of a particular writer. Supposing you are going to read The Wasteland of T.S. Eliot. According to biographical and historical criticism, you have to know about T.S. Eliot's personal life. Where was he born? How was he doing? How did he get his education? What was his family? What was his background? What was his educational qualification? And what is the history of the time or the place where he was living? So, historical and biographical criticism focused on the history and biography, the historical perspective and the biographical landscape of the writer. And the critics of historical and biographical criticism believed that unless you know about the biography and history, the personal idiosyncrasies of the writer, you can't make a proper assessment. That is why biographical and historical criticism focused on the history and biography of the writer. And before reading a text, before making a critical analysis of the text, before evaluating a text, the merit and demerit of a text, the critic or the reader has to know about the biography and history of the writer. Then after biographical and historical criticism emerged new criticism. Today we will stop it here. Hope you have enjoyed it. I request you to kindly like, share and subscribe the channel, Kepish Lit Charts channel. This is your channel. Kepish Lit Charts will always come up with new videos which will be useful for all categories of people. Today, thank you very much. Happy Rath Yatra. Best wishes for the Rath Yatra to you. Jai Jagannath. Namaskar. Thank you very much.